I do want a trigger warning on this because, I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay, I will do that at the beginning. Usually what I say is something like, and I heard the trigger warning on Encountering Empowerment. She did one too. And I say something kind of similar. I say also, just so you guys know, Kelly's story is super raw. We do talk about sexual assault. We talk about, domestic violence. So please take care while listening, be aware. So I'm glad that you asked for that though. I appreciate you like looking out for my audience. I'll probably even leave this in. Matt, let's leave this in so we can show how awesome she looks. Anyways, Kellee, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you. It's always kind of interesting because like the guest and I are usually chatting for like 15, 20 minutes before we start, like we did today. So when I like start that over, because I feel like now I already know you, but I'm always like, hi, welcome to the show. But so anyways, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I am really good. I'm very excited and yeah.
I told you this off air. I'm proud of you for emailing me and asking. And you guys, her email was so sweet. So it outlines her whole story. And then at the end, she's like, look, I know it's a long shot, but I mean, if I don't shoot my shot, you never know. That sentence sold me because I was like, she's right. If you don't shoot your shot, you never know. But also, I don't ever look for, I don't care how many followers someone has. I don't care if they're famous or not, or if they've written a book or not. What I look for is what is in your story, which is the depths of some of what happened, the violence, the system, shelters, and getting to where you are now. And then even reaching out to say, I want to do this, especially for a woman that's young. You're young. How old are you?
I'm turning 30.
Oh, girl. Okay.
I'm so
Like,
excited.
are you excited to be 30? Fucking good for you. How did you avoid the LA trap? Because you live in LA, man. Living in LA, when I turned 25, I panicked and was like, I'm over the fucking hill, bro. And in LA, although maybe it's because I was trying to do acting, or are you just glad you're alive to hit 30?
More so, the 20s really sucked. It was hard and there were a lot
Okay.
of lessons. So I'm so ready to be 30 and see what that
Yeah.
decade chapter has. But yeah,
So I'll tell you this, 40s is even better,
let
which
it.
people would tell me. Yeah. Which people would tell me and I didn't believe. I remember when I was turning 30, I was training this fabulous woman. She was a famous literary agent. This is pre-heroin at this bougie resort in Rancho Santa Fe. The membership was like $100,000 down and then $20,000 a month to be a member at this resort. And then she also paid Pilates $100 a session. Just the coolest lady ever, in her 70s, all pushing 80, gorgeous, multiple facelifts, and she looked really good. And I remember asking her once, we were having a conversation about aging, and she's like, look, she never had kids, didn't want them, just like me, and she was like, you're on the right path with that. Trust me. My friends that are honest, they don't really want them either. And she was like the only person that ever told me like that was cool. And she was like, basically, as you get older, you have two choices. You can choose to look older and look old, or you can look different. I do look different, but I chose to look different. I'm on my second facelift. This is not my nose. These are not my boobs. This is not my hair. These aren't even my nails. But it's the choice I made. And I remember just thinking she was like the coolest lady ever. But she told me that. I turned 30, and I think I was training her like that week. And I was really bummed because I also was still using at that point, like cocaine and alcohol. I was nowhere near getting married. I hadn't graduated college, whatever. And she was like, oh, your 30s are going to be better than your 20s, I promise. And then your 40s are even better. And then your 50s are even better. And I was like, bullshit. This lady's trying to make me feel better. But so far, she was right. So I'm glad that you look at it that way. That's awesome. When is your birthday?
June 24th.
Oh, so it's soon.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes you a Gemini, right?
I am a Cancer technically, but I'm right on the cusp.
You're right
Yeah.
on the cusp. Okay, that's right. Every once in a while, I ask a guest what their astrological sign is, and I don't know why, because I don't know that much about it. But like the little I do know, I think it's really accurate. Like I'm definitely a Taurus.
Yeah, you got to wait till you get the whole chart and you break it down based on your moon
Okay.
sign, your rising sign, and the whole that gets real fun. Yeah.
Oh, do you know about that stuff?
I know enough. Like I know my chart.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
Libra rising, Capricorn moon, Cancer sun, and Capricorn and Cancer are complete opposites, like 6 months apart.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I'm really fascinated by that stuff. I'm a Libra rising too. I'm a Taurus sun, Libra rising, and then Taurus moon and Taurus the next one. So I'm like deep Taurusy, which
Lots
is,
of Taurus, yeah.
yeah, lots of Taurus. So anyways, okay. So I know that you live in LA now and you started in LA, right? Isn't that where you were born?
So I was born in Orange County. I always thought that Orange County and LA was the same. I didn't really know, only because I was moved from California to Minnesota by like 9 years old. So
Okay.
yeah, it's choppy, but
Okay. So what was the situation when you were born? What did your parents do? What did your mom do? Where was your dad? What was your home life like those first 9 years before you were moved?
okay, first 9 years are choppy, so bear with me. As far as I know, never met my dad. He was pretty much in prison for a majority of that time, and he was
Okay.
only released because he had 6 months left to live. Yeah, yeah. So he died at 38 of colon cancer. And like the second he got out, he moved, I want to say, to Oregon to go cook meth. That's what my dad did. He got out to die and he started cooking meth again.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was he in for? Was he in for drug charges? Do you know?
I have no idea. I just know
Okay.
he was in and then he got out. That's all I know. But
Okay.
yeah, if I asked my mom, she'd tell you one thing, but I found out as an adult none of it that she ever told me was true. So we'll get into that later.
Okay. Okay. What did she tell you, if you don't mind my asking?
My mom told me that my dad would stalk her, hog tie her up, rape her, and hold her hostage. She also tried to convince me and my sister that my dad, she's like, "Do you think you've ever been touched as a kid?" And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "Oh, he probably has. It was your dad doing it." And I was like, only to come to find out later that he was in prison that entire time. So everything she ever told me couldn't have been true because he wasn't
Okay.
out to do it. And I found this
Okay.
out through his first wife that he had, who I talk to this day. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So growing up, did you feel a lack of him in your life in those first 9 years? What was your mom doing? What was her situation? She was an addict, right?
My mom is, last I knew, still currently struggling with a meth addiction. In those first 9 years, my mom was an escort. And then she lost custody of my half sister and I when I was like 6 years old. So we got put into the foster system right away. We went to like two orphanages, and then her grandma ended up like getting us out of there, who never liked me because I was not her blood.
Oh, she was the grandmother to your half sister,
Yeah.
the dad's mom.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So how long were you in the system before she got you out?
I think we were in there for less than a year because I was 6 when I was in there and I had not turned 7 yet. So I don't think we were in
Okay.
there very long. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. And do you remember, did you live with a family or did you live in like a center, like a home? And did you go to school while you were there? Did they take you guys to school? Like what does that look like?
The first one I remember, it felt like the setup would be like a hotel in the sense that there were different rooms and stuff, and then they'd give you like a roommate. But the first place I remember just being woken up at a certain time, they'd get us breakfast, lunch, and dinner and do all those things, but we couldn't have anything that was our own. So they provided all the clothes and stuff. And I was just thinking about this the other day. This is so funny, but like I didn't even know how to shower myself or bathe myself. And I remember being in a bathroom and like somebody walking in because I wasn't in my allotted time slot. But I was 6 years old. I didn't understand any of that. Nobody was
Yeah.
walking me through doing any of this stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was just strange. And then the second place I remember was very similar to that. Like everybody had a room, and then you had somebody in your room or a roommate. And it was just like a little bit more laid back. I don't think I was in school yet. Maybe I was. I don't. This part of time is really, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty hazy. I mean, it's hazy for most people. And then I'm sure it was also fairly traumatic to be displaced like that. Did you understand what was going on with your mom? I mean, I'm sure you didn't. You were 6. What did you think was happening? Like, did somebody show up to the house and say, a lady in a suit and say, girls, you're coming? And again, if you don't remember, that's okay. Girls, you're coming with me. Where did you think your mom was? Do you have any memory of any of those details?
It was my mom's place. I want to say it was like a townhouse sort of thing. And we were still getting moved in. Like my sister and I slept on the floor with blankets blankets. That it was that, and it was nighttime because we were already in our bed. And what I remember is us getting woken up. My sister saw my mom in handcuffs and had tried to hug her. I never saw my mom in the handcuffs. And then they got my sister and I, they put us in a car and then they drove us to where we were going to be staying. I didn't understand more than that. I do
Okay.
remember getting like letters from my mom, and she would draw like little pictures and stuff because she was a firefighter while in prison.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Okay. Fire camp.
like, go her, you're in prison, you did good job. But like, I didn't understand it. It was always, my mom worded it, they took you from me. They took you from me instead of like, you were taken because I fucked up, you know? So
Right.
even recently, I was like, I wasn't taken from my mom. My mom lost custody, and I had to work myself through that where I was like, I wasn't taken from her. She didn't, I had to switch that in my head. But anyway.
Yeah. You know what's interesting though? I wonder, and maybe as you've gotten older, if you've done any therapy around this, I wonder if that played a part into you later that had to have instilled some fear in you as a person. The idea that I can just be taken from a secure situation, I can be taken because you feel safety from your parents. That's how you develop senses of safety in the world. Like the world is a relatively safe place. I am free to explore my creativity and be smart and good. But like, I can't even imagine what the long-term effects of that probably were for you and any other child that's been placed into foster care, especially when your parent is saying, I'm sure most of them do, you were taken from me. Like as a 6-year-old, you must feel like I can be taken. I can be taken. Do you have a sense of like fear, or did you have a sense of fear in your early 20s when you were using about like, nothing is really stable, nothing is mine? And maybe you haven't really explored this, but does any of that sound like something you felt?
So the opposite. I think in those
Okay.
first 6 years, I never felt safe because I do remember my mom fighting boyfriends and not waking up for multiple days and being told she wouldn't wake up and waking up in random places, not knowing how I got there, and being waking up behind a TV and literally my sister watching her get raped on the bed. Like, so I don't think we felt safe. Um,
Okay. God, that makes sense. Of course.
Yeah, so it went the opposite. I had this lack of fear where I felt like I could do anything and I was extra wild. Like I'm trying to fight
Oh,
grown men as
wow.
an adult. Like it went the
Okay.
opposite way.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm so glad I asked that because, of course, I would think that my family was safe. It would have been tragic for me to get pulled out of my parents' house. I'm glad that you shared that perspective because obviously that makes like way more sense. So, did you feel a bit safer in the foster care system? And then maybe when you got to your grandmother's, do you remember that?
I remember feeling confused, and then I
Okay.
remember once we got to my sister's grandmother's, it was still confusing, but I didn't feel loved. Living with my sister's
Okay.
grandmother was the first time I was sexually abused, and not by anybody in her home, but I remember
Okay.
getting in trouble for what had happened by her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go home and tell her what happened? Is that how
Abs-
she found out?
oh, absolutely. It's two separate things happened. She'd always have the neighbors watch us, and so I don't know how much detail you want me to go into on that part, but like,
As much detail as you're comfortable with. So
okay,
it's more about you than me. So
okay.
whatever you want to share. I mean, I think though it's so challenging, it can be so helpful for someone else. And I learned this from, I know you listened to the show, Christina's episode. She was, stuck in Hawaii for 10 years.
Yeah.
And the feedback I got about her raw vulnerability about what happened was that it was helpful for people. So I'm never going to stop you. It's more about what you want to share. So you tell me what you're comfortable sharing.
Okay, so bear with me, then I'll be raw.
Okay. Okay.
What I remember with the neighbor situation was that it was like an older couple. They could be grandparents, like that type of age. And the guy had brought me upstairs to their bedroom and he turned on SpongeBob and he had me come lay with him. And I don't remember anything other than someone coming in and getting mad at me for doing that. And I didn't understand. So I remember having to be brought home. I got yelled at by my sister's grandmother, who wrote out something like, I will not something. And then I had to copy that so many times down the page. The second time was They brought us to Mexico because they had a house in Mexico. My sister's Spanish and Mexican, different or different whatever. So her grandma had a house in Mexico, and the neighbors there would throw a party. And I remember this one drunk lady at the end of the night. Her grandma let us just chill with the neighbors, all drunk and partying. And that's really strange when I think about it now. But this one older lady kept singing, like, "We are family," and like trying to get us to dance and do all these things. And like, I felt really uncomfortable. So my sister and I went to the bathroom. Sister went first, and then I went. And that's when the lady walked in and decided to come in and start wiping me.
Wow.
I didn't know this person, and I was so freaked out that we went back and we told my sister's grandma, and I was scared. And she's like, "You're fine, you're fine, you're fine." And so this was like my initial growing up around men, and like whatever happens to you doesn't matter, and like pushing it under the rug. And yeah, it comes into play later where I'm like, I can trace back to those moments where I'm
Okay.
like, oh yeah.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. I can tell how close you still are to it, which means you've obviously like done the work and you're still doing the work. And I think it's incredibly admirable that what you just said, which is that it comes into play later and I can trace it to that, because that gives you, I would think, more of a sense of power over yourself. Like, at least I can know where this came from, and that means I can work with it, right? Rather than just like not knowing and not remembering. I feel like often people, survivors put that stuff aside and maybe don't even remember it. I mean, when did you, and I know we can get into this later, when did you remember that stuff, or did you always remember, or was it kind of blocked out of your memory, or did you always remember?
I always remembered those pieces. It just didn't register that those things were wrong.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I felt like, looking at it now as an adult, I'm like, well, that's kind of grooming. That's kind of like,
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you know if anything like that happened to your half sister too?
Not that I know of. All I know is that she used to get a lot of bladder infections, and my mom always chalked it up to like us always being on the run. But when I think back to it, and I'm like, well, she was only with her dad and only with my mom, my sister. And if my mom was questioning if sexual trauma had happened and was trying to blame it on my dad who was in prison, my curiosity is, was it my sister's dad?
Right.
That's where my curiosity goes.
Right, because your dad was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a relationship with your half sister now?
Absolutely not. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
Too,
all right. Okay. So how long do you live with your sister's grandmother in Orange County?
Not long enough. I want to say 6 months or less. She was just a temporary placement.
Okay.
My sister ended up living with her dad because at this point my dad was in prison. My mom was still in prison as well. So the only place I could go was I could stay with my sister's grandma, who wasn't going to keep just me. I ended up at my great aunt and uncle's house. I didn't know them prior to this, but they ended up taking me for a little bit. So I had my 7th birthday with them, and then I was back with my mom right before my 8th birthday. So yeah, it's very choppy, like I said, my childhood. But I ended up living with them. They were the nicest parents I had ever had. They got me involved in sports. They made sure I had friend time. They did all of these things, but they didn't keep me.
Yeah.
And I get that. I get it now, because I'm like, they're grown. Their kids were already grown, and I got that. They were just keeping me till my mom could get me. So my mom got me back for a total of 6 months. And then she lost me again. Yeah.
Did she go back to prison? Did she get arrested again?
Yeah, sorry. Like, if I don't drink water, I'll cry real hard. My mom, so she had me for the 6 months, and she had started hanging out with her boyfriend again that she had been with prior. And I knew, like, I remember her sitting on the floor doing some project. And I just remember telling her, I was like, I have a bad feeling. I have a bad feeling. And on June 2nd, she had my sister and I go to our neighbor's house to babysit us. And then she never came back. So our regular babysitters who lived across the street ended up coming to pick us up in the middle of the night. We didn't understand again what was happening. We get a phone call that her mom is in the hospital. She got in a car accident. She's fine. That was not true. And I want to say that was maybe like a Friday or something. I don't really know. But like by the following Monday, my sister's dad had already come to get her. So she was back at her dad's house. And CPS came to get me because my legal guardian was my mom.
Okay. What actually happened? Where was she actually?
She told me that what I know as an adult is that she was doing her normal errands like she does every week on that day, but her boyfriend was like, "Hey, can I come run errands with you?" And she told me that it was a setup and she didn't know that. What was going on. She's like, I was just waiting outside in the car, and the second he came back from being inside, all of a sudden we were surrounded by the cops. Oh, so it was a setup? As an adult, I was like, but did you have drugs in your system? Because if you had drugs in your system, then they wouldn't have taken, I'm not stupid.
So she got arrested is what actually happened.
Yeah, she got arrested and went to jail. And being that she hadn't been out that long, she had rebeefed.
Yeah. So how long was she in then?
I don't even know. I don't know because I was gone. But she never got custody back.
So you don't live with her ever again from this moment?
Yep, never.
Wow. All right. Well, damn, dude. Look at how beautiful and put together and poised you are with it. Like you managed to grab yourself an education along the way. You're so well spoken. Did you have because I'm getting the vibe that you didn't, which is like sweeter and sadder. Not that it would be if you did, but did you have, were you well behaved at these people's houses? Were you acting out in any way or were you just like quiet?
I feel like I was really quiet because I didn't understand what was going on. I was probably scared, but didn't know how to like identify that. I didn't know who to trust. I was confused because I wasn't with my sister when I had always been living with my sister. And not just that, I'm the one taken away, and my sister still got to be with my mom because her legal guardian was her dad.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it was like the second my mom lost custody, my sister and her dad ended up moving in with my mom.
You might not remember this. Do they have you talk to social workers or therapists or counselors about the situation when you're 6, 7 and in CPS? Does someone sit down with you and try to help you process?
Nobody ever helped me process. I do remember the first time I ever was in therapy, I was 6 years old. I've been in it on and off since 6.
So there was some attempt by the system to have you in therapy or something.
To try to have me in therapy. Yeah.
Okay. So now where do you go? Your mother gets arrested. Now where do you go?
I ended up back at my great aunt and uncle's just for the time being. And then I'm still in California at this point. They don't keep me for long. I think it was like right before Christmas time. My aunt, who's my mom's sister, ended up taking me. So they fly me from California to Minnesota. And now she's my caretaker.
Okay. Yeah. And how long do you stay with her?
With my aunt? Yeah. She ended up legally adopting me when I was 9 and a half. So she kept me till almost graduation. We'll get into that too.
Okay. So what is the situation like at her house? What's the family structure there? What's the family dynamic? What does your life start to look like after you land there?
She is a single parent to one child, being my cousin, who's a couple years older than me. We never got along. She didn't like me.
Okay.
I was not her child.
Okay.
She, to this day, will tell people that I have reactive attachment disorder, which means all issues are my fault because of my fucked up childhood, as she would put it. And I could quote her.
What is reactive? Is that a real thing? Reactive attachment disorder? I've never heard of that. What is that?
My understanding is reactive attachment disorder is not getting the proper love and like trust and nurturing that you're supposed to get within the first 5 years of your life. What I understand now is a lot of people that were diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, that's just like a blame diagnosis that adults can put on kids for them not being able to relate and mesh well with the child. But it's not the child's job to get along with the adult. It's the adult's job to,
Right. So how does that supposedly manifest? Why would she have said that about you? Were you like, did she argue with you? Would you stay in your room and not eat dinner? Like, what were you doing that made her say, oh, she's got this disorder?
She would force me to go to therapy because I wouldn't
Okay.
communicate with her, and she would make me
Okay.
do therapy, like family therapy, and I would just sit there and say it like I'm not going to. So I don't really know where she
Okay.
got this
Okay.
diagnosis.
Okay. And I don't mean to say what were you doing that made her say that.
Right.
Like, I'm asking, how did it, like, what kind of behavioral manifestations would even make this happen? Right. Like, have her say that is, I guess, is what I'm wondering. And you're going to school, right? She puts you in school. Are you in the right grade? Like, are you in, whatever, fourth grade at 9 years old and going to school?
I was good at school for the most
Okay.
part until like emotional stuff happened, and then I wasn't very good in high school because
Okay.
school is supposed to be a distraction from home life. And retracting back on the behavior thing, I was also not a great teenager per se.
Okay.
She just needed leverage so she didn't have to take accountability for her behaviors, which were abusive. So
Okay. Okay. Like verbally abusive, physically abusive. How did you feel she was abusive? How was she abusive?
when I was 12, she told me I would be a whore because I liked Walmart shoes that were this tall. She
What?
said I was going to be a prostitute just like my mother. She, a different time, was in a fight with her daughter because her daughter was mad that she went back to one of her exes. And I was sitting at the table eating my breakfast. So she threw the chair down and I'm on the floor and chucked the breakfast bowl. Yeah, stuff like that.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that. Okay. Damn. Did you have any communication with your mom during this time? Was she writing you or anything? Did you guys talk? Like, what did that look like?
We tried that. When she
Okay.
lost me the second time, I went through a little phase where I didn't want to talk to her because my
Right.
aunt and uncle were like, yeah, you don't really want to try again. Like, you're going to get
Okay.
hurt. And so I didn't want to. But of
Yeah.
course,
Okay.
when I'm living with her sister, I want to know
Yeah.
my mom. And so I tried to rekindle that. And it was the same behavior. She might not call you back for a couple of weeks because she might not
Okay.
remember you called because she was getting fucking loaded, you know?
Right.
But I didn't, that's all I knew from my mom. So why would I think
Right.
that was different?
Yeah. And she was a meth addict primarily. That was her drug of choice, or is still, as far as you know?
Meth is her drug of choice. She likes alcohol, and she'll dabble with whatever she can get her hands on, as far as I understand.
Okay. So you're going to school. You said as you become a teenager, it sounds like things start getting a little bit more difficult. What does that look like? And when do you get high for the first time?
Ooh. Well, as a teenager, I'll start with this. As an adult, I'm diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And so, not knowing that as a child, PDA profile is like pathological demand avoidance. So, like, if you tell me to do something, I'm going to have a really hard time doing it. In fact, I don't want to do it now. So,
Okay.
I was trying to communicate with her. I'm like, look, I want to have a relationship with you because we're supposed to, but I don't feel safe communicating with you. And I would try to talk to her where I'm like, hey, if you could just give me a little bit of room to like exist, then I feel like I'm not going to try to butt heads with you as much. And she would just sit there and argue with me and yell at me until I would agree with her. She would tell me if I didn't think the same way as her that I was wrong. And so it was just stuff like that. So of course, like if you tell me I can't do something, well, I'm going to start sneaking out the window and I'm going to do whatever the fuck I
Okay.
want. And I did that a lot. Like my windows
Okay.
got nailed shut.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also because my father had passed, she was receiving benefits for keeping me.
Oh.
And one of her boyfriends had pointed out, she's only keeping you because of the money. So I thought it was really funny. The closer that I got to 18, the weirder she was getting with me. To the
Okay.
point where we were
Okay.
getting in like fist fights and shit. She was trying to like take off my shirt off my body. And at this point, I had already been essayed. And so I was like, I gave her one warning and I coughed back and it was like, you need to get your fucking hands off me. And she just kept, so I just, and she's an ex-Marine. And when I tell you,
shit.
yeah, I kicked her butt though. I was really proud of myself because, you got to take care of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended up where I went to my school and I told my school, not the principal, but like the guy a step down or whatever. I told him about what was going on at home, and he was like, look, your options are you can go home, which I don't recommend. You can go to Harbor House, which is like a step down from juvenile detention. Or you can go to like a friend's house and whatever. You're so close to 18, we're not going to do anything about it. So I chose that option, called my aunt and I was like, hey, I'm not coming home, which of course got the cops involved.
Okay.
And I ended up in Harbor House anyways because I was from a different county. So everything the principal told me didn't count. And when I got into Harbor House, they let me out, I think the day before my senior finals.
Okay.
Yeah, my senior finals. And I was like, I'm not going home. If you send me to this lady's house, you're going to find me hanging in the garage with blood all over. Like, I will make it as dramatic as possible just to fucking make a point. And I was like, and I meant it in my soul. If they put me back with this lady, it was going to be bad because I didn't hurt other people. I only hurt myself because that was control. And so, I the day I got out and I said this, and they ended up talking to my aunt after speaking to me. And for some reason, she agreed to let me move into my grandfather's, which was too far from my school. She wouldn't let me have my car, which whatever. And so she was expecting that I wouldn't be able to graduate, that I wouldn't be able to plan it. And so what I ended up doing was finding a way around it, staying with a friend just for the week until I graduated, doing all my finals and passing, don't know how. And then I never had to live with her again. I had to see her again, but I didn't have to live with her.
Okay, so had you started using drugs by then?
No. So I had smoked pot a couple of times. And I had like drank a few beers here and there, but I was never good at it. I did get in trouble for smoking weed. And then once I turned 18, I dabbled with like, I think I tried Molly a handful of times over a course of a few years. It was like one time a year I would do Molly, and like acid, I think I dropped a handful of times over the course of a few years. But I smoked weed. I smoked weed religiously. Like, that was just my jam. I was never good at drinking alcohol. It didn't make me feel good until I turned 21. And I was like, I'm gonna learn how to drink a little bit, because I was a stripper. I stripped from 18 to 22. So
that was my next question. Where do you go at 18? Where do you go live, and how do you make money?
I started living with my grandfather because he knew what was going on, and he let me live with him, and he let me live whatever life I needed to live. So I, as a joke, was like, I'm going to go strip. And then I walked in for a lap dance and I walked out with a job, and I didn't like that place. So I was like, I'm never doing this again. Well, life is expensive, especially when you're 18. So I decided to try a different location. And I was like, hey, Papa, this is what I'm going to go do. And I told him everything. And he's like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. As long as your mental health is in check. And I was like, good. So I lived with him. I started dancing. And that's what I did till I was about 22. At 21, though, is when the alcohol comes in. And I'm like, I loved tequila. And so that's what I would drink. And then I learned about if you drink and then you smoke weed, your blood is thinned, so then you feel twice as fucked up. And I didn't know it until I experienced it. And then I want to say it was like April, right before my 22nd birthday, one of my bosses had drunkenly slapped me in the face. And I was like, you better fucking not do that shit again. Like, never fucking again. Don't touch my fucking face. And I went home and I was so mad. And I was like, if I drink, I'm going to be upset. If I smoke weed, it's not going to do anything. And at this time, I had some friends dabbling with cocaine. So I was like, I want to try that.
Okay.
I never wanted to do it because I was like, if I end up doing it, I'm going to love it because I am my mother's child.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it. I loved the shit out of it. Yeah, I was like,
me too. Cocaine was my first love. I have a crazy question, though, about the strip club. I want to back up a little.
Okay.
I always wanted to have the courage to be a stripper. And looking back, you know, I'm glad I didn't do it. But like when I was younger, I was like, dude, I should but I just like didn't. And I don't want to like glamorize it. It's not something most people enjoy doing. But so, you know, like I'm fascinated with it. When you started at 18, do the other women show you how to move around the pole? Because it's hard. I've taken a pole dancing class. How do you learn how to strip? Does someone show you, or do you watch them?
A few things. When you go to audition, there's almost always going to be at least one girl who's like, just get naked before the end of the first song. That's all you have to do. And like spread your legs. Spread your legs so they can see that you're not afraid to show your shit. So that's what I did. I stripped naked and I showed my shit, and then I got the job. When it comes to pole,
Yeah.
I didn't know shit for a very long time. Our
Right.
particular dressing room had two poles in the back. So in between stage sets, you could just
Oh.
learn stuff.
Oh.
So
Okay.
that kind of, but
Okay.
a lot of the stuff I learned was probably because I was drunk on vacation in Cancun and there was a pool and I was like, I want to do it. So
That's what I'm saying, man. I would think that some of it is kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like, because
yeah,
my sponsor stripped for a long time, 20 years or something, very long time, from 18 until like 30, some long time. And I asked her the same question once, and she's like, that's a really interesting question. She ended up finally, she felt awkward, didn't really know what she was doing, whatever. And then she met this chick who was like a punker stripper. She had like Doc Martens that were platforms, and she would strip to like, I don't know any punk bands, but to punk music, and she would ask them to play punk music for her. And my sponsor met her and was like, oh, I can do that at least. So then she started doing like, she made her thing like punk and like tricks. And so she made it work where it wasn't this like sultry moving around that most women do, because that didn't work for her. And I always just think that that's such a, I think it's, I don't know, I think it's fascinating to think about what you had to like learn, and you have to be good at it, and you have to be strong, and no one ever thinks any of that. You know what I mean?
I
But like,
came with
you have to
jokes
be
and knee
good.
pads.
Yeah, exactly. Wait,
Jokes and
jokes
knee,
and knee pads?
yeah, because that was
That's
granted on
fucking
our knees.
awesome.
My thing was, y'all don't pay me enough to cover this, so I'm wearing fucking knee pads. But then they'd be like, "You're
Right.
so farty," and then just make jokes and shit. And that's because
Oh
I
my
don't know how to
gosh.
deal. You know, I'm
Totally.
awkward.
That's what she said too. Yeah, totally. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay. So you're stripping, there's a pole. And I love that you just told me there's a pole in the back too to practice on. That's cool. No one's ever told me that before. Strip clubs fascinate me. So, anyways, you're there. The guy drunkenly slaps you. You go home. I want to try cocaine. Did you literally just call someone and say, hey, do you have any blow? Can you bring it over?
The friends I was starting to hang out with at that time, because I was turning, or because I was 21, were switching over to people who were like working at the bar and different shit like that. So that's the stuff that they were into. And I had originally kept them at a distance because I didn't want any part of it, until you see it enough, you get comfortable with it. And that was it for me. I'm like, oh, you're doing it around me. Okay, I feel safe. Okay, now I think I can do it too. So that's how that happened.
And you
Um,
said you loved it. Do you remember what the feeling when you first did coke?
Yeah, actually I do. I just remember feeling like I could talk to anybody. I was nice. I was
Me
happy.
too.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I'm like,
It made me nicer because I was a bitchy ass bartender. And when I did coke, I'd be like, what do you guys want? What do you like? Let's try this. I was so much nicer on coke. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that. So you were nicer.
somebody called me to fight. And I said, why don't we go meet down by the river? Bring your dog. So we just brought our dogs and I just played with dogs. Like that's how I diffused
Oh,
an argument. But I was coked out. I was coked out and I
yeah,
chain smoked
yeah,
cigarettes. They had to have known. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyway.
So it made you nicer. And then where does it progress from there? Do you stay dancing at the club and then start doing cocaine more? What are the next few? How does it start to unfold?
I end up, we're getting to the fun boyfriend. Fun.
All right.
The person who had given me the coke in the first place had introduced me to the person that they were getting their coke from. And they
Okay.
were always like, stay away from him, stay away from him. But he was always really nice to me and he never tried to hit on me. So I started to hang out with him. I didn't have to ask anybody. He didn't judge me if I wanted blow. He just gave it to me. So I thought he was my friend. So when I'd
Mm-hmm.
get off work at the club, then I would go hang out with him. And when I would go hang out with him, it was like lines of coke off of people's butts. And I just ran into one of those pictures the other day. Oh my God.
There's a picture of you doing coke off someone's ass?
They're doing it off of my butt. But yes,
Oh my gosh.
yes.
That's
There's
crazy.
not my proudest moments when you run into
That's
like
okay.
staff.
Hey, don't feel bad about that. I've done that shit too. It's okay. It's okay. I actually wish I had pictures of me from that time. There's no visible evidence of any of my shit except for my arrest record because no one had phones. And like, I would like to be able to show the difference in my life from me then to now. Do you know what I mean? And I have no evidence of it, you know? So I'm not saying you got to show that one to anyone, but that's okay. Don't feel bad. I guarantee you 99% of my audience has done coke off someone's ass or someone's done coke off of them. It's okay.
I think it's one of those like if you do blow, you're like, oh, I want to do it just like in the movies. And
In the movies. Exactly. Exactly. That's how that happens.
when you
So,
pretend
okay.
your life is a movie, it's not a good thing. That's what I've learned.
Yes.
But
Especially if it's a drug movie, right? Like I always wanted to be Sharon Stone from Casino. I wanted to be Ginger, but only the casino part with the furs and all that. But like what I learned later is if you want to be ginger in casino, you can, but it comes with the motel at the end when she dies in the hallway. Like, that's part of the party. I remember I went to detox once and the guy was like, welcome to detox. This is part of the party. And I was like, God, he's so right. Detox is part of the whole. You just don't know that. Like, dying in a motel room is it's part of the party if you want to be ginger. So you're doing cocaine at this guy's house. Things are, lurid and crazy in parties. And
yeah, it's his philosophy was numb emotions down with alcohol and coke, and then help anybody. So if somebody's crying at the end of the night, well, we're going to go run and we're going to save them. And what is he going to do? He's going to put some booze and coke in front of them, and then we're going to hang out and party and everything's going to be fine. That's what I learned from this guy. This is a mistake for me. When I became a stripper, because I never wanted to rely on anybody ever again, he is the first person in my life who was like, don't worry, if you ever need help, I got you. And everyone was afraid of him. They respected him because he was the guy that would punch through a car window. And that made me feel so safe. It made me feel so fucking safe. And I started to allow him to take care of things for me, which meant, oh, here's the keys to my car if you ever need to go somewhere, because you're helping me do so much. And I don't want to ever feel like I owe somebody something. So I'm going to give everything that I have so I don't owe anybody anything. And that was a mistake, because 2 months later, the morning of my 22nd birthday, I got let go from being a dancer, or let go indefinitely because they can't fire you because you lease your space. But anyway, I was so fucking emotional because that was the stability of my life. That's how I did everything. And I didn't know what to do anymore. And I did not want to work anywhere else.
Okay.
But now I have a drug problem. I don't realize I have a drug problem. I'm just into drugs. So what do? I hang out with this guy, and I end up letting him move into my place. I was stupid. And we end up dating. I don't know why we started dating, but probably because we were always just around each other. He, like I said, never had hit on me, but then eventually would be like, I never hit on you, right? I want you to feel safe with me and stuff. And then he'd start taking me around like MC clubs and, the people that he was getting his shit from. And
what's an MC? Oh, motorcycle clubs.
Yep.
Okay. Like bikers. Okay. So by then you had your own place. I have two questions. You'd moved out from your grandfather's by now. You had your own place?
Yeah. By 19, I've had my own place.
Okay. This fool didn't have a car. That's why he had to borrow yours.
He, with his addiction, had lost everything on and off. Yeah. So at this point, he didn't have a car.
I'm just curious because like that's such a vibe. Is the guy that doesn't have a car, so he has to use his girlfriend's, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a whole thing, right? And so I'm just kind of curious about that. Like, sure, he didn't have a car, of course. And then actually I have three questions. Why did you get let go from the club?
With my feeling really confident on cocaine, I started saying things that I probably shouldn't have said. Like I would intentionally take my money bag and throw it on the floor in front of one of the bartender servers because I wanted to see them pick it up. Like bend over and be all sexy and cute. Like I wanted to see them bend over. And so I'd be like, but that shit's not cute. It's not cute.
Right. Okay.
And then one of the girls started like treating me differently. And so I think I asked her about it or something, but I had attitude. From my understanding, you cannot ask staff members any questions. And again, I'm autistic, so I don't always notice my tone. But I guess I said like, why are you allowed to have been a customer of mine specifically, but now allowed to work here? And why is it that I work across the street also, but you don't let me come in on my days off? You get to come in on your days off, but I can't do that. Why is that? And they didn't like that.
Okay.
But I also think that the drug being on cocaine was very apparent, even though no one knew. But I think
that's good. You can take accountability for that. That's good that you can look back and say, I'm sure it was also clear that I was on drugs.
There's no way that they didn't know.
Right. Okay. So you get let go. Dude moves in with you. He's bringing you around biker gangs. That's never good for women because then they want you to put in work, right?
Not necessarily. This club was actually really, really awesome.
Okay.
I remember going to his garage and like everyone being like, you're the only one who can get him to smile, right? Like this man does not smile. I was like, maybe it's the tampon broken apart that I'm having them snort through. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Wait, what? Yeah. Why do you have a tampon broken apart that you're snorting through? What does that mean?
If you take the plastic and then you pull it apart, you now have a clean straw.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, because
I never used that.
too bougie for dollar bills, you know?
Okay, but that was smart, bro. Do you know how much gross shit is on dollar bills? And I always used a dollar bill. And looking back, I'm like, my God, like on the back of toilets and gas stations with dollar bills. I think this is probably an urban legend, but I remember hearing an urban myth. I remember hearing that you could even get Hep C from a dollar bill because if it cuts someone's nose and it gets blood particles on it, blah, blah, blah. I have no idea if that's true. I've never met anyone that got Hep C from a dollar bill, but I've heard that you can. So that was smart of you.
Yeah, I think you can. And also, there are
Oh,
male and
okay.
female exotic dancers who will pick that shit up in their crack, their ass crack. So when you think
Oh
about that, you're like, no, thank you. Yeah.
oh my God. Okay. And you knew that, right? So
Yeah.
you used your tampon straw, which was smart. Okay, got it. So they're telling you homeboy smiles because of you, and you're hanging out in these worlds and and then what starts to happen?
I think I'm so fucking cool. And I think I think that this guy really likes me and I think that he wants to keep me safe and yada, yada, yada. And then there's that switch of like, I wasn't used to other people being an addict. Like I had experience with my
Okay.
mom, but I had never loved. Okay. So
Okay.
I think I love this guy at this point. He's making me feel safe, all this stuff. He's also now locking me in bathrooms and blocking me and taking my keys from me and not allowing me to leave, stuff like that. But I stayed
Okay.
because loyalty. This man had always said that if he was going to go, he's going to go death by suicide. So, like running at a cop, something like that, or overdose. He did not want to ever have to go back to jail.
Okay.
So, in the time that I'm like, I want to break up, I know that this isn't good for us, but I'm now addicted to cocaine. What do I do? I made a mistake. Well, I didn't make the mistake yet. He told me that he was going to leave, so I decided to go for a little drive. I realized I was too drunk to be driving. It was bar closed, and there was no way I was not getting a DWI. So I turned around thinking he had already packed his stuff because that's what he said he was going to do, and he was going to leave. He ended up not leaving. So my smart self was like, I'm going to call the cops. So I pretended to call the cops. Pretended to. I didn't actually do it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm like, hey, da 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 da. And he loses his shit. He takes my
Oh my
phone from me.
gosh.
He immediately starts yelling at me. We start fighting. What I remember is he called his friends as he's like trying to put his hand over my mouth and like get me to quiet down. Of course, I'm a fighter, so I'm flailing with everything in me. Everywhere in my bedroom, outside the hallway, all along the walls, along the next hallway, and all in the bathroom, you could see scuff marks from my black boots from where I would have been flailing around. At one point, we were in the bathroom. I think I grabbed like a mirror and I tried to slam it, and there was glass everywhere. And this is the time that I learned that I am not stronger than a man. As much as I would like to think that I can take care of myself and handle my own, I am not stronger than a man. And what I remember is him somehow getting me on the ground. I'm still trying to flail, so he's sitting on my chest. He's trying to strangle me, and he ends up picking my face up and just picking up and slamming it into the ground a few times as he's strangling me and doing all this stuff. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
So when he finally decides, like, I'm trying to scream for help, nobody does anything. His friends listened to me scream for my life and they did nothing. He ends up taking my restraints that I had on my bed, tying my feet up and tying my hands up, and he's gonna steal my car, which was in my grandfather's name. So I was like, that shit. And he was planning to leave me there, but instead he unties me. He ends up bringing me with him. He just drives throughout the night, just drives. We ended up meeting with one of his friends who saw me. I had bruises and everything, saw me, and just left it. Just left it. Well, you shouldn't have pretended to call the cops. Do you see 911 in my call history? It was not there. Well, you shouldn't have pretended because you know that he said that. Da, da, da. Anyway, when all was said and done, he told me you made me do things to a woman I never wanted to do. And that stuck with me because I was like, well, maybe it is my fault because I knew. Granted, to this day, I know it's not my fault. That's his.
Yeah.
When you see someone's eyes turn black, though, from strangling you, he didn't want me to be here anymore. And when I had my accident, he had hoped that I had like gotten paralyzed. We're gonna get into that anyway. Sorry.
Okay.
For 3 days, he kept me in my own apartment after that long drive. And after 3 days, three of his friends ended up coming over because they wanted some blow. And once they got some blow, they decided to get him. They convinced him to give me at least my phone. But they all told me that I was wrong. I was in the wrong.
Okay, so this is the time that you referenced when you reached out to me about being held hostage. So he was keeping you against your will in your house. He had your phone. You couldn't leave or do anything.
I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't go to
You
the
couldn't go to
bathroom
the
without him coming
bathroom?
with me. Yeah.
So were you guys drinking and using Coke these whole 3 days? Or what was the substance use during that time? I'm just curious about that.
We didn't have alcohol, and originally we had
Okay.
been out of cocaine,
Okay.
which
Okay.
I know that when I didn't have drugs and I wanted it, I definitely had a little attitude about myself.
Right. Okay.
So understanding that, I'm like, okay.
Right. Okay.
He did end up
So,
getting coke in those 3 days. Yeah.
at some point. Okay. All right. So, but he's not letting you leave. How did you feel during those 3 days? I mean, were you terrified? What did you think was going to happen? Did you think he was going to try to kill you at some point? What did you think during that time?
When he didn't kill me, I didn't think he would, but I
Okay.
did think that he was going to make my life a living hell. I thought that
Okay.
he was going to steal whatever I had left, which wasn't much because at this point I had been giving everything to him since he was taking care of me. So again, I didn't want him to take my car. I remember being afraid in the sense that like what's going to happen and how did we get here? How did we get
Yeah.
here? How did I
Yeah.
let this happen to me? Because I believed him. I believed
Right.
him.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. So his friends come over and they finally say, give her back her phone. And then what happens?
He gives me back my phone. He ends up staying there that night and he agrees that he's going to move out. He does end up taking my car for like 2 days or something just to move
Okay.
his stuff. I don't remember exactly, but he moved his stuff out. He moved back in with his parents, and then one of his friends' girlfriends came with him so that I could get my car back and they could leave together. Some weird shit like that. And even better yet, I still wasn't done because I went back. We weren't necessarily dating after that, but we did hang out and party a little bit after that. But at his parents' house, that was pretty much the end of that, though.
Okay.
It was like I lost my job, I was held hostage, and then I had an accident all in an 8-month time span. So it was like there was no processing life.
The worst time of your life. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because he taught me, what do? You drink and you party, and then you'll feel better. All the problems go
Right.
away. And that was not
Right.
the case. That was not the case.
How did you pay for the apartment after you weren't at the club anymore? Did you have money saved up or what were you doing for money during that time?
During that time was when I was allowing him to handle things. Originally, I had 3 jobs when I had met him, and by the time I was done with him, I had no jobs. I had to leave jobs because he decided to rob somebody, and that person knew where I worked. I've had to leave jobs, or I guess I didn't have to, but he was like, don't worry, I'll cover this so you don't have to work here. I had to leave some jobs because the cook, like, it wasn't safe to be around one of the employees, and I just didn't feel comfortable and stuff like that. So it was just like different things. But I'm like, hey, if you say you're going to take care of things when I've been taking care of myself my whole life, like, I'm going to believe you. So that left me real fucked. And so I ended up having to cancel my lease, which still, like, getting the place that I'm in now was a problem almost because of this, what happened. But I ended up moving back in with my grandfather. I told him everything that happened, and he knew the truth. But at this point, I have a drinking and a coke problem, and he was not down for that.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about your accident. So were you still living with your grandfather when you went to the party and had the accident?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us that. I know because I heard it on one of your other podcasts, but let's walk us through the accident and what happens.
Being that I was in my drinking era, I call it the blackout days, actually, because that's more so accurate. There was a kid who we would all party at his house after bar close. And so at this point, I decided to go to his house because, again, just keep it going. Whatever keeps me not having to think about stuff is what I was into. So self-harm, sex, whatever it could be, whatever I could do. And so the accident, it's like 5 a.m. at this point, and because of my history of being a dancer, like, there's certain things that I can do or could do that I should not have been doing this intoxicated. We're at this kid's house. Most of the people are in the house. I think it was me and 2 other people in the garage at this point. I'm drunk. But there's 2 bicycle hooks up in the rafters with a wooden bar across. And so I'm like, cool, I can do the splits on the ceiling. Check it out. So I pull myself up and I flip and I do the splits. My friend says, that's really cool. We should get it on camera. So back when Snapchat was only 10 seconds long, one guy is filming it and she decides to jump up on the bar with me. So when I go into the splits, she jumps up with me and just spins like you know the rings when you're at the park and you flip over.
Yeah.
She maneuvered like that. So she just pulled herself up and rotated her body and dropped back to the ground. But by doing so,
Okay.
she twisted the bar and I lost my gripping and I fell in the position of being on the splits or in the splits on the
Oh
ceiling.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Straight onto your head?
Well, I don't know what hit first, but I broke my head back here and I broke my spine in two places. I tore my spinal cord and yeah.
Holy shit. So you
Yeah.
hit the ground
I
and
hit the
then
ground.
what? Everybody freaks out and they call 911. What happens?
No 911. I didn't have
What?
insurance. I didn't have insurance at this time. So I was like, I'm going to be fine. Don't worry
Did
about
you
it.
stand up off the ground? Did you get up?
It took me a minute. So when I was on the ground, everything like went black and was slowly coming back, and it was like that fuzzy vision, and I could hear this ringing in my ears, like kind of like your ears are underwater, and my head just felt stuffy. I didn't understand. I was just like stunned, and I knew that it was really hard to breathe. So I just figured, hey, I know we've all been drinking, but if you can get me home, I'm supposed to start a new job in the morning. I just didn't want to die in my sleep, so I made sure that the person driving me home stayed there with me. I did not die in my sleep, but I couldn't get out of my bed in the morning, so I had to call an ambulance. I would call my grandfather first and be like, hey, sorry, I had somebody over. I know I shouldn't have. Secondly, I need you to unlock the front door because I need you to let the ambulance people in. He was not happy. I went to the hospital the following or later that day, technically, because it happened at 5 a.m. But my grandfather would not talk to me the whole week and a half I was in the hospital. And the day that I got discharged, he kicked me out of his house. So I just had like two major spinal surgeries in that week and a half. Wasn't supposed to lift more than like a milk jug, and I got kicked out. So that was the start of my
So,
homeless journey.
okay. And how old are you when all this is happening?
22.
22. Okay. And right now you're 29, almost 30. Okay. So when you fell on the ground and you woke up, were the people at the party like, oh shit, like, Kellee, are you all right? I mean, like that kind of stuff. They had to have known it was bad.
One of the girls was like, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? No, I don't have insurance. It's fine. It's fine. I'll be
Oh
fine.
my God, motherfucker. All right. So you go to the hospital and are they like, you broke your spinal cord? How did you not get paralyzed? What were your injuries? And then what were the surgeries? What were the surgeries like doing?
The first surgery was because if this is your spinal cord, I broke my T10 and T12. One was cut completely in half and the other one was like shattered.
Okay.
So they went in, they fused my spine. I got 2 rods and 4 pins in my spine to stabilize all that.
Ooh.
They then
Ooh.
went back in to check and make sure it was all done, whatever. And that's when they caught that I had actually tore the sheath on my spinal cord. And so because of that tear, it was leaking fluid to my brain. And if they didn't catch it, I would have died. So
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
And you don't have health insurance. So
Yeah.
like, do you still owe a hospital in Minnesota like $300 million? Like,
One bill alone was over $100,000. I lost my like 750 credit score. It was like down to three something. I lost my car. My car got repoed because I couldn't pay it.
oh no, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So grandpa kicks you out. Where do you go that day? Are you at that point you still had your car, it hadn't been repoed yet. Do you just start staying in the car or what do you do?
At this point, I decide to stay with the first person who says that I can live with them, and that lasted less than 2 weeks.
Okay.
They would get mad because I was sleeping on the couch. Well, I was on a lot of medication, like oxys. I was on meds. Like
Yeah.
I just had two fucking surgeries. Like anyway.
Yeah.
So he kicked me out, and then later in life was like, I was just joking. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke. You
Yeah.
kicked me out. So
Yeah.
after that, I end up going to the next person who says I can stay with him, and they end up touching me in my sleep
Okay.
twice. They came into my room twice to try to get me to change my mind, I guess.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so I ended up moving out of their house. And honestly, from there, I can't even tell you because I moved over 30 times. I think it was like constantly moving.
Okay.
I think I found one place I was there for about a year, and then I was somewhere else
Okay.
for like 6 months, and then I was back to that first place for another. It was just really,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are you doing for money during this time?
Originally, I was working at Carboni's. I was like a pizza cook and a delivery driver. I had
Okay.
the accident, and then I couldn't do half of my job. At this point, I'm
Right.
still only drinking and into blow. And they
Okay.
ended up letting me go because, the drugs are becoming a problem and I'm staying up all
Okay.
night. This is where, like, I was supposed to be in a back cast for 3 months, but I needed them to believe that I was okay. So I got out in a month and a half earlier. And sorry, I'm trying to recall right now. Yeah, I got out a month and a half earlier because I needed to be driving and I needed to be okay. And legally, you can't
Right.
drive with a back cast on or some shit. So what was I doing? I was doing whatever I could. I was working at like a tattoo shop as a front desk girl for a very short period of time. That was also the same guy who had kicked me out after living with him for like a week and a half. Same guy.
Okay. Okay.
So it was
Okay.
just like making the same mistakes. A lot of people, like, either, I wouldn't say like I had sugar daddies or whatever from being a stripper, but I had people who would give me money at times, and like
Okay.
take care
Yeah.
of things. So
Okay.
I did whatever I had to, but then we're getting into the mess.
Right. Okay. Did you think you had a drug problem at that time, or like not really?
I started off not thinking I had a drug problem because I would like leave notes in my planner so I knew how much I did every time I used. And by the ending, I was like, well, maybe I do have a problem because I still didn't think it was like a problem though.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
really
No,
like
I get
this.
it. Yeah, I think that's definitely how I felt. I'm like, yeah, the coke is not great. Like my life isn't progressing in the way that I want, but I'm not like a fucking drug addict. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like kind of how I felt too.
Yeah.
So when do you get introduced to meth and how does that happen?
So that happens very quickly after getting out of a back cast. One of my friends that I had grown up with in the neighborhood, he was a few years older than me, and he was a very persistent person, peer pressury, like, come on, come on, come on, until you finally break, because he just wouldn't give up. And so I remember him telling me to like come over one night at one of the houses, and it was just him and another guy. And they're like, well, we don't have Coke, and it was meth. And so
Okay.
I was like, you know what? It. And I just snorted a little tiny line and I was up all fucking night. I never wanted to do that shit again. I never wanted to do it again. That same guy, I thought we were going to go smoke weed. And I get there and I start pulling out all my weed and shit. And he said, no, 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 put that away. And all of a sudden there was a bubble out. And
Okay.
and so the other person, I ended up dating the other person, but the other person was like, he caught on. And I don't think he wanted to ever like give somebody like your first time smoking
Yeah.
weed. But because I had snorted it the one time, it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I had also like smoked crack, but only because we made it, not like it was good crack
Yeah.
or anything. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, if
Yeah.
I've already done
Okay.
this and I've already done that, I might as well just smoke it. It's going to be fine. And I
Right.
had the time of my life. I had the time of my life.
Okay.
We were on 44 acres. We were like digging for agates in Minnesota fields, and
Digging
it was
for
nice.
what?
Agates, like
What's
rocks.
that? Oh.
So an agate is formed from lava over years and years and years, and you can see like the different layers. It's just a really cool stone. It comes from the earth.
That's such a tweaker thing, bro. Like,
Yeah,
let's dig up some fucking crystals on this farm for
yeah,
sure. Like,
and
that's
like listen to
awesome.
the coyotes and fucking, drive a
Yeah,
Polaris, and yeah. So that's what we were doing, and I was like, this is the life, like.
for sure.
you
Yeah,
know and so meth kind of got me off the coke, which was great, but it wasn't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
meth got me off coke too.
yeah, and right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
meth progressed fucking fast. It was like,
Okay,
it was really fun. I only used with these people, and because it being two guys and me, they started to get into a fight because this guy wanted to fuck me, but he wanted to fuck everybody, and the other guy was trying to snipe whatever he could from other people. It's not like either
okay,
of them gave a fuck about me, but whatever.
okay,
Um,
okay,
so because of that, the guy that had introduced me to meth in the first place ends up getting kicked out, and now the new guy is inviting me over and all this.
okay.
So I was like,
So,
okay.
do you just smoke it the whole time? Do you ever start shooting it or anything?
So I started smoking it, and then it wasn't until like, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how long, but I did start hot rails. That was like the death of me because I loved it so much.
Explain to the audience a hot rail. I just had like a core memory unlocked. I think I did it wrong. It's on a stove. What's a hot rail? Remind me and them.
So if you were to do a line, you break it up, you make your line, and you do that with whatever substance you want to do it with. But if you know what like a dab rig setup is for anybody that's like a honeycomb smoker who likes the wax with the weed, it's pretty much you just torch the end of something and then you smoke the line instead of snorting the line. So you can either snort the hot smoke through your nose or your mouth or whatever. And sorry, this is a lot.
No, it's okay. Do you put it on foil or on the surface of something?
We just honestly, I put it on plastic surfaces. I put it on wood surfaces. I put it on my phone surface. I put it on whatever I could if I needed to.
But it doesn't burn the phone or the desk or whatever?
It did.
When you light it? Oh, it does.
It did. I mean, it's best if you do it like off of a mirror, or something glass.
I get it. So you take the lighter along it, the lighter moves along the line. Or you just light one end and the whole thing goes up in smoke.
If this is the end, like this little tube, you just light the end until that's hot enough, and then you do the whole line. Lighter is gone now because that heated tip is burning your substance.
Okay. Oh, it's in plastic?
I mean, it could be. I've done everything from like a tool using like a socket tip because that's metal, so you can heat that up. I've also done glass tubing. I've done whatever can heat up.
So it's essentially smoking, but it's hot.
Yeah.
And you do it through your nose, right?
You can do it through your nose or your mouth. I damaged my nose so much that I would but yeah.
Okay. Damn. And does that feel different from smoking from a pipe?
Yes, because you're getting, it's the same as when you take a wax dab, you're just getting a condensed hit. However,
I've never done the dab stuff. I was not smoking weed by the time that came around. So, but I'm sure my audience will get it.
Yeah. And I'm like, it kind of ruined dabs for me on the outside of being an active addiction. But I did end up shooting though, eating it and shooting it. And I liked shooting only because it was the exact same feeling as when you like self-harm, take a fresh razor blade and just, it was the exact same feeling. And so when I realized that, I was like, holy shit, it's that pact of adrenaline and like shoots through your entire body. And like, it's the exact same feeling.
Yeah. Okay. So how long do you do meth now? You're 22 when you have the accident, you start smoking, it progresses to hot rails, eventually it progresses to needles. How are you during this time? How old are you? Because eventually you come back to California. Now what starts to happen?
So I lost absolutely everything. I lost a lot of my relationships. I lost most of my belongings, whether they were lost because I got in a car accident because I stayed up too many times and I hit the median, and all my belongings are on the highway now. Like I said, I've had a dildo stolen by a man. Okay.
What? Where was the dildo, in your car?
Yes. And he stole it. He stole it for himself because one of the things was he always wanted to get pegged, and like he would try to anyway, sorry.
How do you know he stole it? Did you see him or he saw it and you just know it was him? What was the situation on that story? Tell me that story.
Well, I totaled 2 cars in less than a week and they both ended up in the same compound. So when I finally was able to get to the car lot to get my stuff, one being this guy's car that I had totaled and then one being mine, and I had stuff in both of them. I asked the guy, I was like, because my stuff was already missing and I was confused. And I was like, did anybody else come see these cars? And he's like, yeah, it was this guy and 2 girls. Immediately, I knew who it was.
Okay. And your dildo was missing?
Yeah, my glass dildo. Yep.
Oh my, your best dildo.
I lived with him for like maybe 2 weeks or something. And I didn't really know him that well, but he would show me videos of him getting pegged to try to get me to do it. And I was which is how I got in the car accident in the first place, was trying to avoid a threesome because I didn't feel safe. Okay. So I left and I ended up totaling the car out instead.
Oh my Lord. And just the tweaker meth life, man. Have you seen Tiger King? Yeah. That feels like a Tiger King thing. Like he would steal a dildo. You know what I mean?
I hope it was washed. I don't know.
Right. So you lose everything. The cars are totaled. And then where do we go?
And then I end up finding out that I'm pregnant.
What?
Yeah, I'm homeless. I've lost everything. I started going to jail only in holding though. I went to holding 3 times. And the last time I got out, I think within a week I was pregnant. So yeah, I found out I was pregnant. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, do I want to keep it? Do I want to? The day I found out I was pregnant with him, though, was the same anniversary of having a miscarriage. I didn't know I was pregnant then. I was just on the toilet and then everything happened, right? So in my head, I'm like, I got to keep this baby. But how the do I take care of a baby when I can't even take care of myself? So I asked my mom for help because my mom's supposed to be my mom. And she's like, don't worry, just come live with me. I got a place. You can either stay with me or you can stay with this person. You can stay with our neighbors. It's all going to be fine, yada, yada, yada. And in my head, I was like, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to keep this baby and I'm going to move out there. And
she's in Orange County?
She's in Fillmore, Ventura County.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
Okay. For those of you guys that listen, it's all kind of Southern California, just a little more east.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's in California. You reach out to her and she says, okay, come here.
Yeah. And she says, come here. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, but I'm going to figure it out. So I got myself into like a pregnant women's shelter. And of course, I got kicked out because I wasn't ready to let the drug go yet. I'm not going to pretend that I was pregnant and I immediately quit using substances. No, I used through like on and off until I was 18 weeks, which is almost halfway pregnant. And then I relapsed when he was 3 weeks old. So I want people to know that I did do that. I'm owning it. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying it happens. So I'm not going to carry guilt or shame. It did happen.
Dude, I've thought about this so many times. If I was pregnant when I was strung out, probably would have kept using. Like anyone that says like they wouldn't, I don't know if you use like I use, I have no naive beliefs that I would have suddenly stopped and kicked when I'm also scared as shit. Like, oh, all that seems like super unlikely. Where was the dad?
At first, I didn't know because I was using sex as self-harm, but also as like a place to stay somewhere. He was at his parents' house. He's 10 years older than me and he was living at his parents' house. I thought that was so hot because I had no home.
Yeah. And did you tell him?
Oh, absolutely. He's the one who took me to the Planned Parenthood to get the test or whatever done.
Oh, okay. What was his reaction when you said, I'm pregnant and I'm keeping it?
Well, at first I said I was pregnant. I was planning on having an abortion.
Okay.
That was my goal. I had the appointment set up and everything, but I did not have a ride there. And I also wasn't very proactive about trying to get a ride there. He wanted me to abort. He said, we could try again when you're not on substances. Like, he pretty much told me he was going to end up taking the baby from me and he was going to have to raise it by himself. And that was going to be that. And I believed him because I didn't have anything going for me. I knew I wanted to get sober, but I didn't have a family. I didn't have a home. I didn't have nothing. He told me he was going to get sober. But of course, when I was like in his room, we weren't dating or anything. But when I was in his room, I saw like the nylon sock next to the vacuum and I looked at him and I knew. And he's like,
what's the nylon sock for?
Oh, sorry. So the nylon sock, he would stick it to the vacuum and then vacuum his carpet so he could get whatever shit had fallen into the carpet.
Oh, I've never heard of that before. Interesting.
Yeah. And when I saw it,
so he was an addict too?
Oh, yeah. Much longer than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you say, I'm going to go see my mom. Do you just tell the guy, I'm out of here? Bye?
No. So he knew that I was waiting to, because I had gone to jail, I had to wait for court to tell me I could go. I was waiting to get sentenced. And once I got sentenced, I could then make moves going forward. So he just thought I was a big old piece of shit. He thought that he could use me as he pleased and throw me aside and whatever. And that was fine. That was fine for me because I was like, I don't need him. Right. And I didn't have any respect for him once he had lied to me because I blatantly looked at him. I said, please don't lie to me because my mother lied to me. And you know what? That's something that's really, really hard for me to come back from in this area. I can give grace if you can communicate with me, but if you can't. And so he lied to my face and then I saw the nylon and I was like, I gotta go. So yeah, he never tried to be a part of the kid's life. He did try to say like, you took the baby from me and you didn't let me be there for the birth and you changed your phone number and you moved states. Yeah, because I was homeless and I needed to get on my feet. Yeah, I changed my number.
What was your court date for? What was your charge? I'm just curious.
The first two weren't serious and it was all like drug related. The last one was tax evasion because I purchased tabs for one of the cars. I had a situation with a guy who owned a tow lot, right? So whenever I'd total out a car, he'd usually have another one that he could give me. And we had an exchange, an exchangement, whatever, set up. And so one of the cars I finally had put in my name, which means I had the stickers, the tabs. But I didn't put it on the car. In fact, the car got totaled before I could put it on the car. So I had these tabs. I had a new car, but I didn't have it in my name yet because I was buying drugs instead. And then I put the tabs on the car because I was like, that's smart. I bought them. They're mine. That's tax evasion.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Oh, you can't I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
I've put fake tags on a car before, but they were someone else's that I stole.
Yeah, no,
But they didn't charge me with it. But it's really serious, right? They didn't charge. The guy believed me. I told him that I bought it that way, whatever. So tax evasion? Holy shit.
Yeah, I got
All right.
tax evasion, drug paraphernalia, and then another one was driving on a revoked license. I said, I do not want to take that one. Don't put that on me because I've already covered all of my driving issues. I've already paid all the
Yeah.
whatevers. So if you put me on that, now I'm going to be revoked for this long, even though I only have this much. So yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
took tax evasion.
Okay. Fucking A, man. Okay. So they sentence you to whatever probation or whatever. And then you end up you somehow get to California. How do you get here?
So the same day I left court and I was put on probation, I immediately called the place and I was like, hey, I'm now one of your clients. I need to speak to whoever my probation officer is. They gave me that information. They're like, nobody ever calls that quickly, like ever. And I called in the parking lot leaving court. And so her name was Gwen. She was such a lovely lady. I still to this day love her. I said, I need a transfer. Look, I'm pregnant. I'm homeless. And the only people that are saying that they can help me at this point are in California. So she immediately filed for the transfer paperwork, but it was COVID. So paperwork got messed up. So it took a little bit longer. In this process, I'm living in a broken down RV camper on a tow lot. The guy I had the arrangement with. My belly is showing. I'm taking showers in one of those giant wash tub sinks, throwing my hair over. I'm living the life, you know?
Yeah.
And one day my mom's like, I'm going to come get you. Cause at this time I was struggling keeping my dog. Sorry, I'm throwing a dog in there, but yeah, I was struggling keeping my dog. And the person who was helping me with it decided to cut off contact with me and steal my dog from me. So she came early to try to go talk to that guy. She ended up coming early, convincing me to leave early, even though I didn't have the okay yet. And then we did sit outside of that guy's store where he worked. She did go in, she saw who he was, and she never said a word to him. She came back out. That was that. That was her helping me.
Oh, to get the dog back?
Yeah. He, of course, didn't have the dog with him. And anytime I called the police were like, oh, you got to take it to civil court. Well, this man knew that I was leaving the state. He knew that I was an addict, and he used everything that he possibly could against me and made it a lot worse than it actually was to convince people like his sister and his girlfriend that it was justifiable that he kept this dog for safety reasons, when in reality this dog was my therapy animal, and he was trained to the point that I had him with like hand signals as a 2-year-old pit. So I was like, okay. So I'm now like emotionally distraught. I want to get the fuck out of Minnesota. If I can't have my dog, like, you're pretty much telling me I have to choose between loving my baby or loving this dog. And my dog was taken because I didn't abort the baby. Like, all this shit.
Okay. What was your arrangement with the tow guy to get cars? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to.
I'm going to say it because you know what? This came back to bite me in the butt, and I will gladly talk about it publicly.
All right.
So this man knew me when I was a stripper at 18 years old. And when I was no longer a stripper and I was hurting and I needed help, he was like, well, I can help you. I said, well, I would gladly love to work for you. Let me work it off. I'll work the car title off. He said, or you could suck my dick. And I said no at first, and then I ended up agreeing. And one of the things in my healing part is when he did try to like, oh, I'm going to be out in California. So we're not friends. We're not friends. You did not stick up for me. The woman to the guy who stole my dog was your best friend from high school. You did not help me. And I pray that whatever happened, that your daughters are never in the situation that I had to be in. And I said, I hope that you go to therapy, and I hope that you fix your marriage, because that better be worth it, because I looked up to you and I thought you were my friend. And you know what? You weren't. You were just using me. And it took me a long time to learn that. And that's okay. But I don't have guilt or shame about it because I was trying to survive. I do feel like I was taken advantage of. And I'm not going to be upset for what I did to survive. So whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Did he respond to you when you said that? Did he answer?
I think I blocked him at that point.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. Good move. Good move. He probably didn't even answer, but good move. I'm glad you did that. And I've heard you share about how important this dog was to you on other podcasts. It sounds like it was like a really big breaking point for you. You were really sad to leave the dog. I think that was, this sounds like that was one of the hardest things that you went through. So you leave the dog behind. You have to. And you come to California now?
I used it as motivation because I knew that if I ever relapsed and I went back to the life I was living, that gave that man justification for what he did to me. And I will never give him that power, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
What was your dog's name? What's your dog's name?
Odin.
Odin? Okay.
Odin, yeah.
Okay. So you move, and then what happens?
I'm living with my mom and I'm realizing that all these promises she had for me were not right. In fact,
Okay.
when I thought I had smelt meth in the vehicle she had rented after coming back from the bathroom, I told her, I was like, you know what's funny? They had to have been transferring meth in here. I could smell it in the vents. I can smell it when the vents are on. Why? Because I know what that fucking smells like because I'm not stupid. However, I was stupid enough because I believed that she was sober. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought she was sober. And so I end up living with her and realizing she is me when I am high. I am my mother's daughter. And that is what I will look like if I keep using.
Wow.
But I'm also I'm around her using every single day. I'm around her roommate who's drinking every single day. And so I'm drinking. I'm drinking. I end up having the baby. I'm, drinking. I'm smoking weed. I want to say what I know for me is alcohol will take me to a place that I don't feel like I'm in control. And immediately I want to feel like I'm in control again, which triggers the find cocaine or find an upper.
For sure. I am literally the exact same way. So were you able to get prenatal care and stuff when you got here? Did anybody tell you you need to go to the doctor? Let's go to the clinic. Okay. So you did all that stuff.
Yeah. We went, we did all that and everything was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
And you actually stopped from 18 weeks until birth. I can't believe you stopped. Did you have any assistance with that? Or you just put it down one day and didn't use again?
I put it down. I did end up using it, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But
okay,
I put it down and I didn't plan on using it. I did smoke up until 7 months of pregnancy, smoke weed.
Okay.
I don't have any guilt or shame over that at all either. I think weed is very healthy. I'm not a doctor though, so whatever.
Okay.
It helps a lot with a lot of different things. And then I had the baby, and I want to say when he was like 2.5 weeks old is when my mom, she had left a perfectly packed bubble sitting in her smoking shed. And she had passed out after being up for days, and she wasn't leaving. So you know what I decided to do? I decided to go to her shed and try it. I don't know why. I was really drunk at this point, but I decided to do it, and I was up all night. And I remember not waking up, but being in the morning and my kids crying. And I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, how? There's no way that you can function as a parent and show up for your kid under this shit. And I don't think my mom ever actually wanted me to get sober because she hadn't gotten sober. Therefore, she didn't want me to do it because why was she sitting there while I'm living with her for the 9 months? Hey, Kelly, can you show me like how to tell if this meth is good? And like having
she would ask you that. She would ask.
She literally, she had me like put it in a bubble for her and light it up so she could see that it crystallized or whatever. Yeah. She had me do all that and teach her that. She gave me all of the equipment to make her a hot rail tool. She asked me verbatim how to shoot up. Yeah, she was traveling with it on her with me in the car, knowing I was on probation and shit. She was bringing me to my sister's dad's house, who she's still in contact with. Well, not anymore because he's dead, but at this time would bring me there, and the whole house you could smell meth. They were getting high together. So the kicker, when my mom lost custody of me and she's telling me all this shit about my dad, I found out once I came out here and living with her for these 9 months that one, she never talked to me. The neighbors didn't know I existed. Nobody knew I existed. She pretended I did not exist. So that was a slap in the face. Nobody knew I was coming. Her roommate didn't know. That was a slap in the face. But my sister's dad is the one who had called CPS to have me taken away permanently that second time. And I didn't know it until I came out here. And I was like, so you're still hanging out with him. You're still getting high on meth. But what about me? Oh, but that's your sister's dad. Bitch, I'm your daughter. What the fuck you mean? What the fuck you mean? Anyway, I don't feel bad that my sister's dad passed away. In fact, my inner child feels safe. It is what it is. And I will leave that at that. But yeah.
Did you see your half sister again when you got back here?
Yes. In fact, I lived with her for like a month and a half.
Okay. After the baby was born?
Yeah. I left my mom because we got into a fist fight, specifically for the conversation where I was like, stop saying that I was taken from you. Question, did you have meth in your system? And she didn't want to say it. I was like, but did you have meth in your system? She's, well, yeah. I said, well, there you go. Take accountability. It's not that hard. And we ended up getting into a domestic violence situation where I left and I never went back. And so I ended up staying with one person for like 2 months who came out with a metal pipe. He was also a meth addict. He threatened me with a metal pipe in the kitchen for hearing voices. It was just my TV. I was watching Netflix, but I decided I wasn't doing this shit anymore because I don't have to live like a meth addict if I'm not using meth. So I called my sister and I was like, hey, you said that I could come stay with you. I'm taking you up on that offer. I'm coming right now. And then I explained once I got there, and she helped me get my stuff from that guy's house. And of course, in the month and a half that I lived with her, I realized my sister doesn't like me very much. She has some insecurity issues and she uses people and she has behaviors that I wasn't a fan of and I was getting lied to. And again, I deserve more than that because I'm trying to get on my feet and I'm traumatized and I'm scared and I don't have anything to fall back on in California. So I decided to set up an appointment with a shelter. And the day I just up and left. I up and left while my sister was at work and I never explained to her why I was leaving. I never planned on seeing her again because again, if you can kick a dog while they're down, then I don't trust you. And she was taking advantage of me and I no longer trusted her. So I got into the shelter and I just sorry.
Okay. So where was the shelter?
There's two of them. It's the Midnight Mission, and the shelter I was at is the Homelight Shelter, which is like a branch off of the Midnight Mission. One is on Skid Row, and the one that I stayed in is in Inglewood. And
Okay.
you would never know that it's there. It just looks like an apartment building.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, the shelter I stayed at for a year, and
Wow.
I had some expectations of me, but this program, they help people who have DCFS cases and help them get their kids back. This shelter will set you up for life. Like,
Wow. So after you use that day in the shed, do you use again or no, you're sober now at this time? You move into the shelter?
I took 3 hits off of her pipe and that was the last time I ever touched meth.
Okay. A meth pipe. Oh yeah, your mom. Okay. So you move into the shelter. What is the process? Because like, I love that they even make that available. So you call and they say, yes, you can move in here for free and live here. And we'll give you a food stamp card and there's food here. What does that look like? Like, can somebody be at 0 and move into this shelter?
So it was a few things. First, I had to call 211 just to find resources. 211 is an amazing resource. They ended up giving me, I don't remember the first information they gave me, but it was not something that I needed. I needed something more. And so somehow I got a phone number who ended up giving me an email and they said, email this person. So I emailed this person. I didn't hear anything back. So I emailed the next day and I didn't hear anything back. So I emailed again. Well, because of doing that, I ended up getting the interview. First, they interview you just to kind of get a feel for you to see if you're going to be a good fit. And then they tell you like what they offer and all that stuff, whatever. So, sorry, my brain is like catching up. But yeah.
No, that's okay. So what do they offer? What are the services that they offer?
What they offer is caseworker management. They have a housing specialist. They have a program director, and then you get in and then you start having these case manager meetings. And the first one is like making a goals list and breaking it down. Like, okay, here's this, how do I step by step do this? And then like weekly, this is what I did to reach that goal. So it's just like and they're like, hey,
that's helpful, right?
Absolutely. It's that, but it's also like, hey, you have addiction and mental health. We want to get you into mental health resources and find you recovery and find you this and find you that. I didn't know anything about recovery till I joined.
You didn't? Because I was going to ask you that too. Did anybody in your circle ever like they got out of rehab or somebody was going to meetings or nobody was talking about it?
My sister was slowly starting to dabble with some AA, but more so because she needed this new community or something. I don't know. She was in it more for the dates afterwards. I don't know.
Okay.
And then growing up, my aunt Susan, who like my whole life has had addiction stuff, I remember going to like an AA meeting here or there. And like I had been forced to try Al-Anon as a kid. And of course I was like, I don't like this. If you force me, I don't want to do it.
But you had never tried to get sober until now.
Right. And I didn't know anything about outpatient resources. I didn't know inpatient resources. I didn't know nothing. So because 1, I was on probation, and 2, I'm in this facility, I now have these requirements that I have to make. I was able to get off of probation a whole year early for meeting my requirements because of being in this home.
That's really cool. I'm so glad that that's like a thing. So, what were did they have you go to an outpatient or go to like NA or AA meetings? What did they suggest for you for recovery?
For recovery, they just said like maybe one to three meetings a week.
Of 12 step.
AA or NA. Yeah,
Right.
whichever.
Okay. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, I got into one AA and one NA, and I liked them both. I would alternate
Okay.
kind of like when I'd go to what. And then I outpatient wise, they kind of had like the same, like make sure you go to like one to three meetings a week. You'll get
Okay.
randomly drug tested and then show up for your individual appointments along with your group appointments. So I did all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What were your goals that you guys wrote down and that you started to work toward?
So my goals were to get into the outpatient because I wanted to start making those steps on my probation stuff. One of my goals was to set aside time to start writing so I could start a book. Yeah, so we got little notes there, but more so did that later on.
Okay.
I had to, gosh, I'm trying to think. I had to do so many things. I feel like I was always busy. It was constantly like having to call DPSS, so Department of Social Service, or whatever gives you the EBT and all that stuff. I had to like make a
Oh,
bunch of
right,
those
right, right.
appointments and
Okay.
meet with people and
Yeah.
different things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So,
establishing
did you start
structure.
working? Yeah, it's establishing structure. Exactly. Did you get a
Yeah,
job or?
I have not worked a solid job since like during active addiction. My accident, I became disabled and I never got the opportunity to like take care of myself with what happened to me at 22. So when I found out I was pregnant before I started coming to California, I started applying for disability and then got denied and then reapplied. So like that was another one of those goals
Okay.
is the
Okay.
shelter helped me get a lawyer who would take me on pro bono, who would then walk me through the disability stuff,
Okay. Okay.
which we're still
And
doing
then,
to this day.
yeah. Okay. Oh, wait, you still haven't gotten it yet, or you have gotten it and you're just working?
As in, I've applied, got denied, reapplied, got denied, took it to court, got denied. Now it's a civil case.
Okay. So
Yeah,
how have you been surviving this whole time?
with shelter, they helped me secure housing. So I qualified for an emergency something or other. I get help with a voucher for
Okay.
my where I live. My cash assistance is my main source of income currently.
Okay. Okay.
And what I do is, to putting it bluntly, I do TikTok shop product
Yeah.
videos
Okay.
because you can make a little bit through there. I've
Yeah. Yeah.
monetized my social media platforms if I can make a
Okay.
few bucks there. I started doing OnlyFans while I was in the shelter because I will never fucking be homeless again I will never put myself in a position where I have to ask for help again.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
that. I do
Okay.
whatever I can to be okay. But this is why I started writing a book, public speaking, and wanting to share my story and doing all of these things and going to school. I
Yeah.
go to school too, and so I
Yeah.
get paid
Oh.
through
Oh.
FAFSA.
Okay. Okay. Where are you going to school?
Los Angeles Southwest College.
So wait, how long ago was all of this? When were you in the shelter? Where are you now? Oh, you've got housing. So now how long when was like how long are we till now? Like when was the shelter year?
Okay, so I came to California May of 2020. I lived with my mom for about 9 months. I got in the shelter June of 2021, and then 2022 is when I started living here. So I've been here for going on 3 years.
Wow. Okay. And like, dude, oh, I mean, you are working. OnlyFans is working. That's working. Creating content is working. You know what I mean? That's working.
I do whatever I can to push forward.
Yeah, that was like smart to think of that. Like, how was did you have a boy or a girl?
I had a boy, I have a redheaded 3.5 year old, a wild and free spirited soul of a child.
What's his name?
Everett Alexander. He
Okay. And he's
saved
still
me.
with you?
Yeah, he completely saved me. I am 100% the only parent he has right now. I'm the only one on the birth certificate. I'm the only one.
Where is he right now? He's at daycare?
So yeah, he's at daycare. That's another thing. The program really helps you because it's a shelter, and you're probably on food stamps, you probably cash assistance, some type of whatever. That means you apply or you qualify for a lot of things. So I qualify for Early Head Start, which is a Crystal Stairs program. So the shelter helped me organize getting him into a daycare, so that way I have time to myself to go to work or to go to my mental health or school or yeah, whatever.
My gosh, look at you. So what are you going to school for?
So I laugh and I kind of whatever because I was so hurt when my dog got stolen that I was like, I never want anyone to feel like this again. So originally I was like, I'm just going to go to school and I'm going to take the classes I have to so I can be my own business or whatever. But I'm going for business administration so I can start a nonprofit so I can foster people's animals who are struggling with homelessness or addiction and want to get into programs.
That's such a good idea. Look at you. That is such a good idea. My first boyfriend in recovery lost his pit bull, Sonny, and it's the only thing that ever made him cry in jail. His mom had to take it and she gave him away when he was locked up. And his brother told him, and he said he went back to his bunk and just sobbed. And he's lost a lot of things, but that like broke him. My husband is the same way. My husband was relapsing last year and people were suggesting to me that I get rid of Tank. I never would have done that ever. But like Skylar, when he came back, he was like, the one thing that would have made me like leave you is if you had gotten rid of him while I was gone. And I was like, honey, I was never going to do that to you. Okay. But like, you know, it was hard to have him alone. He was a puppy, whatever, but I never would have done that. That's a real fucking thing. You have to go through with that business idea. That is such a good idea.
I absolutely plan on doing that. I figure if I can be successful with selling my book and public speaking, then I can take the profit of that and I can start my nonprofit. In full circle, I can help people.
You could also probably get grants for that too, because that's a good damn idea. And you, like Narcan Nate, who I know you know, he can get grants for his nonprofit to get it started. Like he's always like kind of working on it and sometimes he's behind and whatever, you know, it's Nate. But I know that you can also get help. You could even probably do a fucking Kickstarter to get money to start your nonprofit. I would donate to that shit all day. Like that is a really good idea. Like you have to do that. I want you to write your book too, but the nonprofit to help people that have animals that are, because that will keep people out longer too. If you love your animal and they don't take him at the shelter or the sober living, you're not going to go. That's what happened to my ex. He wasn't going to leave Sonny on the street. He had hip dysplasia. He was sick. You know, like he wasn't going to leave him. Oh my gosh. You're the only guest I've ever interviewed in 4 years that had that idea. You were destined for this. You have to do this.
I will be doing it. I will.
Okay, good. I'm going to follow up with you for years. Make sure you started. Do you know what you want to call it?
The nonprofit, no. I have a name for my book, but I don't have a name for the nonprofit.
Okay, don't share your name for your book yet. Don't tell anybody.
Okay. Not till it's copywritten.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you have stayed off of meth and alcohol and any hard substances this whole time, right? And now how long's that been? Your sober date from that stuff? What's the date on that?
September 10th of 2020. So
okay,
it's the
all right, so almost 4 years.
Yeah, same anniversary my dad passed was September 10th. So my sober date is also September 10th.
Wow. You didn't do that on purpose though. That's just when you stopped.
That's just how it happened.
Interesting. Okay. So lots to unpack here. We're already 2 hours in. I don't want to take up too much of your time. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. No, it's my fault. It's not your fault. I want to say thank you so much for everything that you've been willing to share today. I told you off air, I heard you on 2 other podcasts and I just kept thinking, no. Ask her this. There's so much more here. Why aren't you asking about the dog? So I'm glad I was able to, unpack your story a little bit more. At some point you decide to add medical marijuana, whatever you want to call it, marijuana maintenance back into your life. At what point did you decide I want to bring marijuana back into my life? And what were your reasons for doing so?
So when I first had my child, I was smoking weed again. And I was smoking up until I had to go to the shelter. Like I had smoked before my interview that same day. And I was honest with them about it. However, they have a no substance policy. And so I was like, okay, do I want a home or do I want to get high? And I chose home. They do, if you have like a medical prescription. So like if I went to a pain management specialist or whatever, they would have let me take whatever meds I got, which I don't want to do that. So I just waited and I was a year fully abstinent. And then after that year, when I moved into here, I started smoking weed again. I had always planned on doing it. I was always honest and transparent about it. And it was a very important person from that shelter who specifically said, do you know what? I might be a recovering addict, but every once in a while I have a drink too. And I was like, so I don't have to have a drink, but I can smoke weed. Like, and it was kind of the opening to recovery can look very different for a lot of people. So.
Okay. So what are your reasons for feeling that weed is beneficial for you? Because I think it's all about brain chemistry, right? Like my buddy, my very good friend from high school, he'll smoke weed and work out and get stuff done. I had a woman that worked for me who I never knew this. My best instructor, most reliable person ever. She could run the studio by herself. I found out like year 3, she hit a bowl every morning first thing as like an anxiety medication. I had no fucking idea. She would be there at 5:15 in the morning, never missed a day, teaching spin, teaching TRX, the most reliable person I've ever worked with. And she smoked weed like medication for her in the morning. Now, I can't do that. I'm a zombie. I'm an idiot. I don't get anything done. But what are the benefits of marijuana for you? Like, why did you decide, you know what, I want this in my life?
So a couple different things. I had an issue with that thought process of like, I have to be completely abstinent. That never really sat well with me. And when I showed myself that I could be completely abstinent, I was like, okay, I can do it, whatever. However, I am a person that struggles with chronic pain because of my accident at 22. And that pain has been dismissed and set aside because I'm a female and because of my age. That does not mean that I do not experience chronic pain every single day, and I do.
Right.
Another thing is I do have a little bit of anxiety and I do have other things. Weed helps me with that. I too am a person who can smoke first thing in the morning, and then I start doing my chores and I start doing my homework and I start cleaning the floor, and I can do all of those things while stoned on weed. I use it as I need it. If I need to feel my emotions, I allow myself to cry. I allow myself to feel them. I allow myself to write down and process them or call somebody and talk about it. So I make sure I never use it to stop myself from feeling, because that was when I ran into issues. I need to feel first.
I think that's fascinating what you just said. I just interviewed somebody else, King Lazy Eye, Dylan Wilson, a few weeks ago, and he said the same thing. He drinks after shows, but not if he's upset or anything. He never uses it to cope with an emotion. And I think what you just said is really key too. And that's the other thing that I want to ask you about. So marijuana, whenever. And I believe that regardless of substances, regardless if you medically use Suboxone, methadone, even kratom, whatever. I think if you have no program of development or no program of connecting with yourself, working on yourself, whether it's going to church, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, I don't know that would always end well. And that's what I wanted to ask you. What is your process for making your life better and connecting with yourself emotionally? Like, how do you feel? Because like for 12-step people, we're on what we would describe as a spiritual path. The steps are a spiritual thing, right? It's like therapy. When I talk to my sponsor, we pray, we meditate. My husband does a 10th step every night. It's basically journaling. It's a thing, right? It's a tool for connecting with yourself. What are your tools for connecting with yourself?
Well, one of the first things is I turn on my Reiki. Like every single day I'll take a shower and then I'll do my sigils in the mirror. So I turn on my Reiki, and then that makes me feel like I'm connected with my higher self first thing. Every single day. Reiki or turning on the sigils? Which part?
Reiki is when you move energy over somebody, right? But explain all of it, because I don't totally know.
So Reiki is it's like energy healing. You can pour Reiki, like I can do this. I can put Reiki into my water. So when I drink it, I'm putting charged water into my soul with intentions that I have thought out and decided, right? If a plant is hurting, I can take my energy and I can put it around the plant and send my energy into that plant to heal. Essentially what Reiki is like, here's your higher power, higher source, higher self, whatever you want to call it. And I am the conductor. I am the charging cord connecting from higher self to whatever it needs to go into, whatever I'm charging.
Cool.
So you could do it with a person right in front of you, and you can have a whole little session and not even have to put your hands on them to heal and move energy. You can also do it from astral, in the astral world. So Reiki for me is just connecting with my higher self. But then that also goes into, I sit on the floor and I stretch and I do yoga and I do a little bit of meditation, sitting there either quietly or not quietly. Sometimes I can meditate when I'm in the shower or meditate when I'm gardening. I just do things that make me, one, feel connected to the earth, and two, make me feel connected with myself. I do the things that make me happy. I just do little things like that. So I go for walks. I physically touch trees. I stick my feet in the dirt. I have a bucket of dirt so I can homestead in my 1 bedroom apartment, and I get in there. So I just do a lot of different stuff like that.
So mindfulness practices, all of these are ways to be mindful. That's so cool. Okay, so when you go to connect with your higher power, the source or whatever you want to call it, if you're healing a plant or a person, do you just close your eyes and then like cosmically kind of connect? Do you do some deep breathing? How do you get that connection?
So I took classes to get attuned to Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, so I'm not a Reiki master yet. I can do it with my hands. I can, some of the sigils, it helps you, and when you get attuned, it helps you to go to an astral world, so you can just think about it. And I picture myself up in this space-like environment, and it's me and this other person who's consensually agreed to this. You cannot do anything without consent. You need their consent before you try to heal them. You can't just be like, hey, sending you good vibes. No, they have to consent to that. So you can do it all in your mind, or you can physically do it in person. It just depends on the training and knowledge. I really do think a lot of it comes down to, though, is like, our mind is so fucking powerful. If you believe it, it'll come, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course that makes sense. Wow, that is so cool. So you took classes like online? Where did you find the classes? Okay.
So I took the Reiki courses via Zoom through a friend who was with some other friends trying to start this Reiki course going. I've also taken spiritual life empowerment courses. I learned how to read the Akashic records, specifically because I had a dream and I was like, I'm supposed to learn how to speak to dead people. And so I wanted to practice mediumship, and that came with the Akashic records, and helping lost souls pass was kind of my concept going into it. So I have like a little store of skills.
Yeah, like educational things that you learned. What are the Akashic records?
So Akashic Records is like the most beautiful library you could ever possibly imagine. And every single person has a book. It's their book of life, right? So you get into this meditation, you do the sigils, you read the prayers, and then you can go to this library. You enter the library. You can find your own book, and then you can read into any past life that you've ever had. So say you're afraid of the water, and maybe in a past life you drowned as a kid, and that's why you're afraid of the water this life, right?
Okay.
Or you can go in, and with consent, you can go into somebody else's book of life, and you can help them through whatever it is. It's just, but
That's so amazing.
It's beautiful energetically. Yeah.
It's like the coolest thing I've ever heard. What are sigils? What's the sigils that you turn on? Did you already say that? If you already said that, I think I missed it. What are those?
So sigils, I don't know if you can see that at all, but like
we'll be able to once it's clear. I can't right now, but yeah, it's like symbols. So
it's little symbols and markers. One is for the first attunement. The second two are for being able to go out of yourself and astral, pretty much, because on this dimension it's all about time, but in reality time does not exist. And so it's our job to like break down the fact that like everything is I gotta rush. No, time doesn't matter. Time doesn't exist.
Right. So when you say turn the sigils on, what does that mean? Set them out, like look at them and connect to them?
You could write it in your hand. You could write it in your mind, in your vision. You could do whatever, and then you can say
that's why you said you write them on the mirror.
Yeah, so I'll do it in the mirror, and I'll say shokure. You're supposed to do it in sets of 3 because
dude, that's so cool. I love this. I love all of this. The nonprofit for the dog, for the pets, like the Reiki. This is really, really cool to me. Like that's such a fascinating spiritual practice that I've never heard of. In fact, I want to start making some videos I feel like that one of the greatest barriers to entry for 12-step is a higher power and people struggling with that. But there are so many ways around that. And I've been trying to like think of different ones that guests have suggested, and a Reiki practice. That's one that we can suggest. I'm also fascinated by astral projection. I read a book when I was a kid about this chick that could do astral projection, and I always wanted to try to do it. But so before I let you go, what is your relationship now, if any, with any members of your family, your mom, the aunt who helped you, where are all of that? Do they know what you're doing now? Do they know that you are doing better and that you're sober? Like, what's the story there?
I know my aunt reached out to me about a year ago around this time, and they called, and I was like, I'm not going to answer that. I don't trust that. So I was like, what do you want? And they blatantly was like, well, I want to see your son. I said, well, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't know why you would think that you would be around my son. You never treated me right, which then made them go off into, well, you have reactive attachment disorder and da 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 da. And I was like, P.S. I was diagnosed with autism. It's not reactive attachment disorder. And that is something that is, genetic. So good luck breaking that one down, guys. But yeah, I don't talk to anybody because on my mom's side, because my mom's side has a lot of their own journey to figure out. And that's the nicest way I can put that. And on my dad's side, I never met anybody until I was an adult. So I'm starting to get to know like my two half brothers and their families over the last couple of years, but it's a slow burn because I'm focused on me at this point and building my stability. So yeah, I don't talk to anybody really.
Okay. And then autism in your life, how does that present and how do you manage it?
So it presents very not, it doesn't present more so because I'm really good at masking.
No,
it.
not it. Yeah, I don't think at all. Yeah. You're very connected. I don't know a lot about it, but
let's put it this way. Autism could be like, I can't make eye contact with you, or I will never stop staring at your eyes because in my head, I'm counting how long I'm supposed to be because I don't know what's normal, right? I'm an over eye contact person.
Okay. Maybe it's better that we did Zoom then. If I'd come to your house, maybe you would have been like,
yeah, probably. That's exactly what happened. So all of this blurs together and you're just one little, that's exactly what will happen.
Okay. You know that that too much eye contact is something that you might do. So are you aware of that and you just consciously like look away when you think it's appropriate? Like, how do you manage that behaviorally?
So something in recovery, I'm trying to allow myself to just simply be, because the more that I mask, it's fucking exhausting. And I don't want to use my resources towards something that doesn't matter. Because if I'm masking, then I'm not being genuine. But also if I'm masking, I probably don't feel safe. And why don't I feel safe?
So it can also be like a clue for you as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or maybe I just need to get some fidgets out. Sometimes you got to move the body, and like.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Damn. Well, dude, I cannot thank you enough for this. I'm so glad that you reached out to me. I'm so proud of you. You're on such a good path. I'm so happy you have your son. I'm so happy that you found all of these beautiful practices like Reiki and that you're like this amazing woman sitting in front of me. I'm so proud of you. I'm with you on your journey. I want to see all of this stuff start to happen. If someone is listening and they've had a system upbringing and turned away and let down, and they are either still using and scared, or maybe they're clean, but they feel unsafe and unloved. How do you start to work through the very real reality that you were unsafe and you were unloved, but now as an adult, you want to live your fullest life? What would you tell him or her to do? Where can they start if they're scared and they don't feel safe?
Two things. The first thing, I understand that the hardest part about getting sober is choosing to do it. Once you choose to do it, your mind is made up. The second part, all that love that you want to pour into other people because you think it'll make them stay, pour it into yourself. Love yourself first, because when you love yourself first, everything else will fall into place. So
I love that. Kellee, where can everybody find you on social media and everywhere else? I want people to be able to connect with you. What's all your handles and stuff?
I'm just Kellee Lengyel on Facebook.
I'll link everything in the notes too, because I know yours is like Kellee, not Kelly. So if it's like long or whatever, I'll just put it in the notes. They'll be able to click it and go to you. So we can do that too.
Okay, yeah. I think my IG is Kellee, not Kelly, and TikTok is like Kellee dot not dot Kellee dot. And like it's the spell. Yeah.
Every time I go to look you up, if I just spell it with an E, it finds you. So I'll make sure I have that linked for everybody.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm so unbelievably full of gratitude, and you are amazing. I love your show. I think you are killing it. And it is because of shows like yours that keep people like me clean. So thank you.
Well, it's only because people like you are willing to show up and share that we can help other people. So thank you for saying that. Thank you so, so much.